Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Michelle Graff, and I'm the editor-in-chief at National Jeweler. I'm pleased to welcome you to the latest episode of My Next Question, National Jeweler's webinar series sponsored by RDI Diamonds. Today's session is hosted by our associate editor, Lenore Fido, and features Oscar Sachs, CEO of Salesfloor. Before I turn it over to Lenore and Oscar to get started, I just want to let all our attendees know that if they have a question, they can type it into the Zoom Q&A box at the bottom of their screens. I will be back on at the end of the discussion to facilitate the Q&A. Also, today's session is being recorded and will be available on the National Jeweler website this coming Friday, April 9th. Now I'll turn it over to Lenore and Oscar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle, and thank you, Oscar, for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm thrilled to be here. We love the jewelry category, and being able to speak with you guys and discuss opportunities is a thrill for us.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this one too. So we're going to be talking about virtual selling today, but I wanted to start off just by giving you a moment to introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your background and about Salesfloor.
Absolutely. So Oscar Sachs, I'm the CEO of Salesfloor. I'm also one of the co-founders. My background was in retail. I worked for a few very large retail chains for about 10 years, and I was responsible for store operations. So everything that had to do with how the store, operated, how they, associates interacted with customers, store systems, policies and procedures. And so that's what really gave me a lot of experience in the reality of the store.
Right. So I have you here today so we can talk about virtual selling. So starting with the very, very basics, what is virtual selling?
So it happens to be one of the most exciting spaces right now because of everything going on. But virtual selling is the idea that store associates, they are the ones that retailers entrust to give a brand experience, to serve customers, and ultimately to sell. And one of the biggest gaps in retail is that customers didn't have that same experience online. And so retailers were offering a completely different, disconnected experience between the store and the online. And one of the dangerous things that started to happen is as more and more people were researching online, those associates were not able to help those customers in their research phase like they used to in store.
Right.
And second is retailers were losing their differentiation online. Everybody pretty much looks the same online. It's like one product catalog. And so retailers were saying, if online is going to become more and more an important space where our customers are going to be, how do we make sure that we represent what makes us so different on that channel? So one of the ideas that Salesforce actually brought to the market 6 years ago as part of that transformation, so nothing to do with the pandemic, it was really about stores should be able to do online and digitally the same things that they do so well in store. So how can customers get in a digital shopping experience with a real store associate located near them, who's able to answer their questions, give product recommendations, and either help that customer better convert online or help the customer come in store and finish the transaction in store. So virtual selling, a lot of people talk about it as just video. It's actually a much broader set of engagements that associates are now doing to sell to customers when they're not between the four walls.
Right. And so to your point, there are a couple of different ways that you can connect with a sales associate. You can do it via video or website chat or text. On average, how do people prefer to connect with a sales associate?
So we look at this in two ways. One is inbound from the customer, and another is outbound from the associate. Those are two different virtual selling funnels. So from an inbound perspective, when customers are engaging online, they have the choice of either live chat, which is about 40% of the interactions. Then they have the choice of message requests. Message requests could be email or SMS. That is equal to live chat. It's also about 40% of the interactions. And the reason for that is a lot of times the customer is shopping when the store is closed, or associates on the floor are busy. So they still need a way where they can ask questions and get help even when the store is not available. So you see 40% live chat, 40% customer requests. We see about 15% is appointment requests. So customers are engaging to provide some information and then confirm a meeting time where they can either meet virtually or they can meet in store. And then SMS is really not on the inbound funnel as much. When we talk about stores reaching out to associates, so never mind customers asking for help, but virtual selling also includes the store when the customer is not in store. How does the associate know, you know what, let me reach out to my customer. They recently bought a pair of pants. There's a great shirt that just came in. Maybe they would like that. So let me reach out to them by SMS, messaging platforms like WeChat or WhatsApp, posting on social, or just standard email. So when you see associates reaching out, we see 50% email, 50% SMS, and SMS is growing faster. So very soon you will see the majority of that will be done through text messages. And when customers are trying to reach in, we see that happening mainly live chat, and that's not video. We see the majority by far is live chat by text. And video chat is activated only maybe 5% of the time when they're already engaged in a text chat, and then they decide to turn their camera on. And then when it comes to video, we do see 1,000% increase in appointments that we were tracking before from the pandemic that are virtual. So clearly, virtual appointments is something that is controllable. It's easier to execute, and customers are booking a lot more appointments now than they did in the past because they prefer to do it virtually.
Right. And so I've used services like this before, particularly via text message, and I really like it. Like, I think that it's very convenient. But when I think of like older customers, like my dad, he's in his 60s. I know he tends to prefer a more traditional way of shopping. So in terms of demographics, what type of customer is interested in virtual selling? Is it geared toward younger customers?
Well, I mean, we've seen adoption across many different types of retailers. So we have one retailer that is definitely an older customer. So
Right.
probably would be 50s and 60s in terms of their prime customer profile. And they are using it just as much as we are seeing other retail brands that have our product that have a much younger audience. I definitely do think, there's probably more adoption from, younger generations. But when we say younger, it's probably, 50s and under.
Right.
And I also think that the majority of this interaction is email, SMS. And so these are kind of tools that every generation right now is using in their daily life. So there's no real obstacle for someone, of an older age category being able to interact.
Right. So it's not very technically complicated then.
Yeah, it's, you know what, it's the same tools that they would use to text their grandchildren. So I
Right.
think we probably passed that point where, because it's mainly email, SMS, and conversational type of tools, I think they're very comfortable with it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I wanted to talk a little bit about personalization, like personalized service. So especially when we're talking about jewelry shopping or any type of luxury shopping, I think personalized service is very important. In these stores, you're usually, dropping a significant amount of money, and you want a little bit of extra service there. Um, so what are some important things that a customer should learn? I'm sorry. What are some important things a sales associate should learn about a customer? What are the types of questions they should be asking?
Absolutely. So, when you think about virtual selling, personalization used to be the number one reason why you wanted to do virtual selling. But what's really changed now is traffic into the stores has really changed, and it's changed forever. So, for sure, people are going to return into the stores post-pandemic, but the reality is that traffic will be less. Shopping behaviors have changed. So I would start by saying that virtual selling, first and foremost, even before personalization, is how do I not lose these customers who are no longer coming into my store. I need to still be able to virtually sell to them.
Right.
The second, which is the point you're bringing up, which is personalization, we've definitely seen that the top 5% sellers in any one of our retailers were always, they were the ones converting the most sales, and they were intuitively doing some of these best practices. And what Salesfloor helped bring is a platform that allows the average associate to behave the same way as the top. And what they were doing, number one, is when they were first engaging with customers, they were trying to get a better sense of that customer by asking them questions about their preferences so that they knew how to follow up with that customer. And so a great example, in the jewelry space is anniversary dates. If someone's coming in and they're buying something for an anniversary, it's great to be able to capture that data in Salesfloor so that you can be triggered during the next anniversary to recommend a gift item for that customer. That's one example. Other kinds of attributes of the customer would be what size are they, whether it's in apparel or jewelry, what product categories do they prefer? So are they mainly buying watches, or do they buy as many bracelets as they do watches? Having an idea of that really helps the associate focus next time on what that customer is interested in. We have retailers that sell multi-brands, and so knowing brand preferences of a customer is also very helpful. And being able to see transaction history of the customer is very helpful, because when they scroll and see everything that customer bought, it helps them really mix and match new products that can go with things the customer already bought. So those are some examples of the types of attributes that when an associate is speaking to a customer, they're able to capture. And then one of the things Salesfloor does for that outbound virtual sale is we can trigger tasks for the associates that say, this was an anniversary, it's coming up in 2 weeks, good time to reach out. Or this customer, you tag them as liking this kind of brand, and we just launched a new collection for that brand, good opportunity to reach out to that customer, et cetera, et cetera. And so those attributes are not just nice to have info, it's actually what's going to drive associate activity to know when, where, and why every day that they should be reaching out to customers and engaging them.
Right. So speaking of personalization, and this goes back to something you had mentioned previously, I like when a store will email me and say, hey, you bought this dress last week, and now we have these shoes. Maybe that's something that you'd be interested in. But then on the other hand, sometimes I'll go on their website and I'll be looking at a pair of shoes, and then I'll just close out the tab. And then they will send me an email later that day, and they'll be like, oh, hey, we saw you were looking at these shoes. And to me, I'm always like, I don't really like that. That feels a little intrusive, kind of like they were spying on me. So I know that other shoppers are also sort of wary of the data that these companies are collecting on them. So, what is a good way to offer a customer something that the data that you've collected says that they might like without giving off sort of that creepy vibe?
Yeah, no, and I think that, marketers have had to deal with this, even with, their email marketing programs. If you spam a customer too often, if you are reaching out to them in a way that makes them feel that they're being tracked, that is definitely not the right way to engage with the customer. And so whether it's email marketing or whether it is a store associate, knowing the right times to do that is important. I personally think that anytime that you're providing a real value to a customer, I think they will appreciate it. So when someone is just browsing on your site and you track that and you reach out to them, I'm not sure how much value, because they didn't try and engage with anyone. They were researching on their own, and all of a sudden somebody is coming and reaching out to them. So, I agree. We do have some clients that analyze browsing history and want to trigger. We have some clients also that when products are sitting in the shopping cart for a while and they haven't converted, it triggers an associate. But I think those are the edge cases. The majority of our retailers are, number one, limiting the amount that a customer can get contacted across the brand. So that's one important control. Number two, they're trying to correlate who reaches out, not randomly, but someone that sold to that customer in the past. And so that customer, when they see a salesperson that they've dealt with in the past, they will react differently than a stranger saying, hey, I saw you on our website. And then third, it's really trying to trigger an outreach based on real value that the associate can provide for something that the customer has initiated. If you're just browsing on my website, you really haven't initiated anything yet. And so, so those are some of the guidelines. And I think every retailer really does it different based on their customer and what they think their customer needs. But the platform of Salesfloor has to have the controls to make sure that retailers can fine tune this and control it. And that's one of the important things.
Right. And so next, I wanted to talk a bit about this virtual co-shopping feature that you guys have, which is where a customer can shop via video alongside an associate. So, I mean, that seems sort of like a fun way to build a relationship with a customer. So, can you talk to me a bit about how virtual selling can lend itself to growing your customer base as a sales associate?
So that's probably one of the fundamental changes that is happening with the new modern associate, is that by giving them tools to drive digital, you've now increased their ability to serve customers, generate sales, hit their targets, and earn income. And that is a fundamental change, because digital has become such an important part of the business. It's no longer 1 or 2% of sales. And so letting the associate to drive and convert digital has led to a major change. And besides them hitting their budgets and earning more income, we actually see our clients telling us that it's become a recruiting and retention tool. So people are all competing for resources, and store associates are choosing to go to retailers who have these kind of tools because it allows them to sell a lot more and make more money. In terms of the specifically the video chat, so when we think virtual selling, we should think that it's a range of many different features and many different activities. Video chat is actually the smallest part. Live chat is what people are more comfortable, because customers don't want to turn on their camera, and associates have a hard time controlling the video experience and the audio experience in a store. So video chat's getting a lot of attention, but the reality is the main use case for video chat is when a customer has booked an appointment and they want a video consultation instead of an in-store appointment. The reason that's the biggest use case, because the associate can execute that. It's a set time, they control the background, they can control the noise, they can control the camera, and they're dedicated to take care of that customer. But again, that's really limited to the appointments. Video on the fly. So if I'm shopping on e-com, one of our products is called Salesfloor Connect, and the customer can see real store associates located in their nearest store, and they can in real time live chat, or they can message. Live chat, where customers are texting and the associates are replying, is a lot more executable than turning on your video. And so we see a lot of the associates are getting these requests, they're looking at their shelves, they're scanning barcodes right off the shelf with our app. They're writing recommendations and attaching these recommendations so customers can view that. And then right from there, that can translate into a sale online, which the store gets credit for, or it can translate into the customer booking an appointment or just coming in store and finishing that transaction. So what I'd like to say is that video chat has been a really cool experience, but much more executable when it's part of an appointment, a set appointment. And what we see from an experience is texting or messaging, a live chat or messaging as the back and forth, real time on the fly communication. And co-browse is a new feature we just launched, which is while we are live chatting together, whether I'm on video or not, our associates told us that it really helps if they can see the customer screen. So if the customer shares their screen, like many video conferencing tools do, it's very helpful if the associate sees the customer screen as they shop and look at products on the e-commerce site. So our co-shopping, co-browsing feature is we're texting together, but as I'm texting you, I can see what you're looking at, and it just facilitates the discussion. As well, if I wanted, like you mentioned, I could turn my video on, I can show product right on my shelf, I can show myself to show the product in real time. But most of the time, just being able to provide a product attachment, which is the same thing you see on an e-com site, and customers are clicking on it and buying online, is usually the majority of the interactions.
Right. So I'm curious, how often do you see repeat customers on Salesfloor, like a shopper coming back to interact with this sales associate in particular?
So that will differ based on the type of retail model. So in some retailers, their associates have one-to-one relationships. They're commissioned or incentivized usually in some way, and they are there to maintain an ongoing connection with their customers. We have other retailers that are, base salary only, no commission, and there's less of a one-to-one relationship. It's more about the customer just wanting to get served by their local store.
Right.
And so let's talk about the ones that have a bit more of a relationship. Those are the ones that you have very high repeat. Those are the ones that when you help your associate reconnect, and that's what they're calling conversational commerce. Don't just serve the customer when they walk into the store. Be there for your customer on an ongoing basis when they're researching, when something new comes up. And that's how you're going to develop that ongoing rapport with the customer, so that when it is time for them to buy, the first thing they're going to think of is their associate and your brand. And that's how you get brand loyalty. As well, that relationship gives the ability for the associate to reach out to the customer and initiate and create a demand without coming across as violating someone's privacy, like you mentioned before.
Right.
So we definitely see for the commissioned associates, a high degree of customers that are choosing to digitally connect with their favorite associate in the comfort of their own home, get served, and then they either convert online or they end up finishing that conversation with their associate in store.
Right. Okay. Well, that's encouraging. I know when I think of virtual selling, I tend to think of these one-on-one interactions, like one sales associate, one customer. But you guys also have this eventing feature that sort of broadens it a bit. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's kind of where things are evolving. So traditionally, it's always been about the one-to-one. But we're finding, again, retailers are more open because there's less and less traffic in the store to
Right.
kind of redefine what the role of the associate is and what else can they be doing that they're uniquely positioned to do. And so we see leveraging your associates as influencers and being able to post one-to-many social posts on Instagram or Facebook. That is a form of one-to-many that is gaining a lot of traction. And they can, on our platform, make product recommendations, take pictures, and then post them on all the social networks. And then we have one-to-many video. And so retailers in the past were always doing store events. And some retailers did it a lot more than others, but it was a way to drive traffic into the store, a way to create an experience in store. And whether it is, a stylist showing a new collection or a beauty advisor showing you how to create that look, or Home Depot doing a do-it-yourself project, every retailer had their own kind of in-store event that they would use. So we have an event module as part of our clienteling platform that allows associates and every store to be empowered, create your own event, properly communicate it with the right assets, and then have the tools to manage that event. So who's attending and the notifications and everything you need to do to create an event. And that event could be in store, but where we see tremendous growth, which is the same with our video appointments, we see the ability for associates to have a virtual event where they're maybe broadcasting to 500 people about a new collection, and they have the store in the back, they can show the product, they can present to hundreds of customers at the same time. And when you think of that power compared to being in the store, you really only can serve one customer at a time. But
Right.
virtual events allows you now to really create demand and awareness on product with hundreds of customers. And then they're able to then click through that, buy online, and the store and the associate are getting credit for the sale. So it's a tremendous tool for associates to really get themselves out there. And again, another example of how digital has created a brand new opportunity for the associates. We also see the events are very popular for smaller groups. So groups of friends, wedding parties, jewelry parties, makeup parties. It could be 4 or 5 people who want to interact kind of like we're doing now in a small group, but do that with a product expert from a brand that they love, showing product, discussing product, and making shopping social, like it is, when you're in a mall with your friends.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure that really came in handy this year, especially. I'm sure jewelers would find it really useful for doing virtual trunk shows or bridal events or something like that. Um, but I guess going forward, I know these tools are very important now, but do you think they're going to remain as important as we sort of get a little closer to our pre-pandemic normal?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I could tell you it's something being discussed, by all retailers right now. And I talk to a huge part of the retail industry, and I could tell you, especially in the higher touch products like jewelry, vertical or apparel, I can tell you that the consensus very consistently from all the retailers is traffic is not going to go back to where it was. It's not going to be as bad as when stores are closed or when there's a full pandemic going on.
Right.
That would be terrible. But the idea that traffic is going to be 15 to 20% down is pretty much expected for the long term, because the same way we have people at our office doing virtual yoga, virtual fitness, the same way, you have Peloton and telemedicine, and all those things are going to change permanently how some customers are going to want to interact. And so I think that these tools have gone from, priority number 4 as part of an omni-channel transformation strategy. They really have become priority number 1, especially in the jewelry space. Get this tool in the hands of the associate. Not only are they serving my customers on my e-com site and better converting online, but they're also reaching out to customers in a scalable way, engaging them on an ongoing basis, and driving digital sales like they do in store. Logically, it just makes sense as part of the transformation that retail started 10 years ago. So it's not just about pandemic, it's more about how customers are changing the way they shop.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, I think retail is certainly evolving and just evolving faster given the pandemic. And I know that in the past year, businesses have gone through a lot of changes. They've made a lot of e-commerce related investments to stay afloat, and during a time when for a lot of them budgets were fairly tight. So my last question for you is, what would you say to a small business owner who is sort of on the fence about using virtual selling?
Well, our recommendation to our clients are always look at all the features that a platform has to offer. And then from there, try and understand which ones have the biggest impact in your business. What does it take to integrate that specific feature, not the entire platform, but what does it take to integrate that specific feature? And what are the metrics in terms of sales and other KPIs that are related to that specific feature? And when you do it that way, it really helps you develop a roadmap approach. And it's a longer term approach, but it doesn't mean you're rolling everything out right away. The idea is make sure you understand the big picture, but then focus on the first feature that can have a real impact, easy to execute in store, easy to implement, lower cost, and then slowly grow from there. And that's why one of the big advantages we bring to the market is retailers have been really stuck with point solutions. They have an immediate need, especially during the pandemic. They find a vendor that does one specific thing. They, put them on as fast as possible because it's easier and it's cheaper. But then 6 months later, they have another need. 3 months after that, they have another need, and they get stuck with 4 or 5 apps that have overlapping integrations, overlapping features, and most importantly, it's hard for the store to execute because you have all these disconnected apps, and it gives a different experience to the customer. So the strategy is think of the long-term roadmap for your associate. Think about which platform has that, but allows you to be able to just turn one feature on that will give you the best bang for your buck and is the easiest for you to implement. And then slowly, as your roadmap evolves, you know you have a platform that can evolve with you. That's basically the crawl, walk, run in a recap approach. And that's what I would recommend to people experimenting with. How do I make sure I'm not left behind? But at the same time, there's only so much I can do right now.
Right. All right. Well, that's all the questions that I have for you. I really appreciate you taking some time to talk with me today about virtual selling. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle now and see if we have any audience questions for you.
Uh, Thank you, Lenore and Oscar. That was a really interesting discussion. And thanks to our sponsor, RDI Diamonds. As a reminder to our listeners today, you can still type questions into the Zoom Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And I'm going to try to get to as many as possible. We did have quite a few questions submitted beforehand. While I give people a minute to enter their questions, I just want to say a quick word about RDI Diamonds. RDI Diamonds, the selection you want, the quality you need. Thousands of diamonds, that's just the beginning. RDI offers a wide range of services and support to help you succeed. From flexible memo options and a partnership with De Beers Group Industry Services to generous stock options and cost efficient shipping. RDI's goal is to provide the highest quality of both care and diamonds to your store. Visit rdidiamonds.com today to learn more. That is rdidiamonds.com. Now, let's get started with our listener questions. I'm actually going to go first with a question that I thought of when I was listening. Oscar, you mentioned the eventing feature, and I had a question pop into my mind. Is that able to be, can you use eventing to be a blend of online and in store? What I'm picturing is, let's say I have a jewelry store and I want to have a summer soiree in June, let's say. So some people are going to be comfortable with coming into a space with other people, some people are not. Or there also could just be still restrictions in my area on how many people can be in my store. Is it possible to kind of have some people in the store and then have kind of a screen up where some people are joining virtually? Is that something you're able to do?
So that would really be something that the stores figuring out how to execute. We haven't seen that yet. The reality is, if the store is doing a virtual event, most of the time they're sitting in front of a laptop or they have their phone and they're presenting while they're showing product. So having people in the store as well while you're doing that is probably a different experience. So we haven't seen that yet, but you never know what stores are going to figure out how to implement, but normally we see it single channel.
Okay. It might be something that we see more as more places return to in-person events.
Yes, possibly.
Someone else wanted to know, this person writes, we have our remote selling system up and functioning. They want to know, what is the most productive media to promote it to the customer base, to let people know this is what we have, this is what we can do?
So interesting question. The number one way that we see customers engaging with Salesfloor is when the retailer doesn't have a lot of traffic on their website. When the retailer has a lot of traffic on their e-commerce site, definitely the thing that generates the most digital interaction is our embedded tool that is on every single page of the e-commerce site. And it has a call to action that is different on different pages to kind of help the customer with what they need on that page. So that in itself is the advertising tool that says, want to get fitted or speak to a product expert or find the right diamond. All of these are call to actions depending on the category you're on that speak to the customer and say, hey, you can speak with an expert right now and get help. But a lot of clients don't have a ton of traffic on their website. So while that's a great interaction, the volume is small. One of the number one ways to promote is the store associates. We see associates, especially when they're incentivized with commission, they are promoting to all of their customers that are coming into the store. They are emailing all of their customers, they're texting their customers and saying, you now can get served by me virtually and not just in store. In fact, we have a major department store that they put QR codes and they advertise them throughout the store, and a customer could just scan the QR code and get connected virtually with an online customer. So we see store associates being one of the main drivers of promoting that virtual selling option. And then lastly, we see retailers in their marketing newsletters. They are able to localize and feature local associates in their newsletter, depending on who the newsletter is going to. And it'll say, in the bottom left is get a virtual consultation with our expert. And there's a picture of the associate. And when you click on it, it can bring them to engage with the store associate. So we see retailers promoting it on their newsletter. We see them promoting it in store. And we see associates are driving that awareness with their customers, because associates want their customers to buy digitally from them because of the bigger opportunity.
And do you see, Oscar, that there is a lot of traction? Do a lot of your clients use, let's say, social media, thinking particularly of Facebook and Instagram? Do you see them using that to promote virtual selling?
I do, but I think volume-wise, the newsletter is probably used more. So our clients are very large. They have huge email databases. And I think that's probably reaching more eyeballs than the social strategies. But definitely we have retailers who have specific programs that position their associates as influencers, and they are promoting that on the social channels.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. We have a question that came in. What are some tools that retailers can explore to implement in order to improve the customer experience at home and bring it closest to what they would experience in person at the store? They gave a couple examples here: WhatsApp API, e-commerce trackers, video appointment apps, etc.
So one of the best advice, and maybe I'm definitely not objective because I'm with Salesfloor, but as a former store ops guy working in retail, my best advice is everybody that used to do call center, chat, that used to do video for B2B, right? Anyone that's not selling to end consumers, they're all targeting retail because of the pandemic. And the reality is those tools were not built for store associates. They're built for people that are sitting behind a desk, either a salesperson of a company or a call center agent. And what my recommendation is, you want to find a platform that was built for retail and built for store associates. The workflow is completely different, and that's what dictates whether the associates can actually execute this or not. And that's what we had to learn over the last 5 years. Because we built it from the ground up only with the lens of the store associate. And we have comparisons that we show, here's what the biggest call center apps or video apps like Zendesk or LivePerson, here's what they do. Here's how our thing works. Theirs is amazing. It's just not meant for store associates. It's meant for people sitting behind a desk. And so I would say, look for clienteling platforms versus looking for a video or a chat company that serves hundreds of thousands of customers that are B2B or call centers. Look for a clienteling platform that has the widest range of features that allow you to start with, one thing, do it right, and then as your needs evolve, you just turn those features on. That will future-proof your roadmap strategy and won't make you, in a spaghetti of technology.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have another question here that kind of deals with the aesthetics of virtual selling. Someone wrote in and said, they have no space for a nice background. They want to know, should they use a virtual background? And also their sales staff, there's kind of no space off the sales floor, and it's loud there. How do they deal with that? So kind of how do we control audio and video?
Yeah, it's a real concern, and there's been so much demand for video chat because of the pandemic. But the reality is, we rolled this out 3 years ago, and we saw with our customers that the live chat went through the roof. The messaging, which is not even live, it's just requests going back, that went through the roof. But video was very difficult to execute. And so what I recommend to our clients is video on the fly is probably not where you want to start. You want to start with live chat. You want to start with messaging, see how that executes. and wait for video chat a bit further because it's on the fly, right? On the fly, I mean, I'm on the e-commerce site. I see there's a tool that I can interact with my local store and I can do video on the spot. So it means the associate's going to say, you have a video chat request, accept or decline. And then they got to be ready. When it's on the fly, it is very challenging to get the video right and the audio controllable. So my suggestion is start with video appointments. Customers can do video when it's a scheduled appointment. And when that happens, the associate is going to have a lot more time to control the video. I think virtual backgrounds is not a bad idea, but what we do see with our clients is they always want to show the product. So having the product behind you, being able to show the rack and hold the phone and being able to, show merchandise one after the other is much more practical than thinking you're going to be sitting, on a chair with a professional background. So we don't really see that. I think for events, you're going to see more of that. Events is where there probably could happen maybe, when stores are not open. So right before the store opens or right after the store opens, you might see events being scheduled. So think about if the store closes at 6 p.m., but you have a friends and family event at 6 p.m. from 6 to 6:30 and it's virtual. No one's in the store now. The merchandise there, the audio's controlled. But again, I would say that people have not figured out yet how to do video on the fly. And when it comes to video appointments, it's really for the associate to find the best time to control that environment, or video events would be outside of store hours.
Right. And I mean, like with anything else, an appointment also gives you time to prepare. They can have the merchandise they want at hand. They can be settled. They can not feel stressed or rushed or any of that.
Yeah,
Right.
in fact, when you look at Apple stores, they're designing their new stores with kind of stadium seating so presenters could present to people in the store. And so same thing where if it's a video appointment, you may have just a corner in the store that you carve out. I could even have, one of those ropes, a stanchion that separates you, and customers will find that cool. It's a cool experience to be coming into a store and seeing somebody with a video and hosting an event, but that kind of needs to be prepared. So we like to say that start, it doesn't mean you have to end there, but start with video when it comes to appointments.
So Oscar, yay or nay on a virtual background?
I personally think for the store model, it is not, it's not important. I think it could be a bell and whistle that can be used over time, but I don't think it's part of the core requirement of the feature.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Now we've had a couple questions come in that has to do with selling tips and techniques. So I'm just going to throw those out there. Somebody wanted to know, how do you tips for selling jewelry online? And then related, somebody else said, many times I receive offers only to have the customer say, quote, I will think about it. How can I close the sale? So it seems like people need some tips for, I mean, it's different than selling in person. People need some tips for making and also closing sales online. Do you have any?
Yeah, so it's a good point, because when it comes to the associates being able to use technology, that there's really no obstacle. Even in the older workforces, that's very easy for them. When it comes to being a good digital seller, that's a different story. And I think retailers are going to need time to slowly train and improve how some of these people do it. So one of the important things our platform does is, how do you eliminate as much chance of error that the associate can make? How do you control the design of the template? How do you control the product images that are being selected? How do you even control why the associate is reaching out to the customer? And so you're kind of, as much as possible, trying to automate, including recommendation engines. You're trying to automate what the associate's doing, so that they can do it well. But I would say, we have an entire retail services group, and they work with our clients, and they know all of the best practices that they see that is generating the best results, probably better than I do. But if I had to pick some of the best ones, the first is a post-purchase cross-sell. So our platform, when someone bought a bracelet, it'll trigger the associate, 30 days later and say, here's the bracelet your customer just bought. Here's a great pair of earrings, or find a great pair of earrings that goes with that bracelet. And so cross-sell to a customer that previously purchased is a very good sales strategy. That's one thing that we know happens a lot. Another thing is, how do you re-engage customers that aren't coming back? So someone who didn't buy in 6 months, how can you get an associate to reach out versus a marketing newsletter to say, why don't you come in store, or let's book a virtual appointment, and I'm happy to walk you through, some of this new collection that we just got through. So re-engagement strategies we see are very popular. I think how you, when you're in a communication with your customer, not attaching product recommendations would be, reducing the impact that your communication has. So every time that you are recommending something, don't just say, we think you should buy this kind of bracelet. Attach the bracelet so that they can easily click on it and then buy online. And as well, we see a best practice is associates are taking pictures. So they're putting the bracelet on their hand. They're taking a picture of that bracelet on their hand. They're attaching a product recommendation that links directly to the e-com site. And so now the customer is getting a nice branded communication that says, hi, this is Oscar. I thought this would look great on you. It shows the bracelet on my hand, so you get a sense of how it looks. And it shows the product image that you can click on and then buy online. Those are just some of the, examples that I see. We also see an in-store use case. These were all digital use cases, but a very powerful in-store use case with the customer is they looked at 5 different things, but they're not ready to buy. So the associate with our app is scanning the 5 barcodes of what that customer looked at and is saying, why don't you give me your phone number or email, and I will send you everything that you saw so that you can think about it later. And at any point in time, you can ask me questions or you can click on it and buy online. And the customers see value in giving their phone number for that because they want to have in their email, a reminder of everything that they looked at in the store. They want to be able to reply back to that text or email if they had questions. And then all they do again is click on the product, buy online, and then the store gets an email saying, congrats, your customer just bought this $300 bracelet at 11 p.m. at night. And that is super engaging for the store associate. So that's a good example of an in-store selling strategy.
Yeah, and I think your point about taking a picture of the bracelet on the sales associate wrist is so important. I love personally when I'm shopping for anything online, I love when they include customer photos, whether it's furniture, whether it's, what have you, like to see someone else who bought it and how they're using it and how it fits in their space, or how it, how a sweater looks on someone. I think for jewelry, that's one of the main things, is showing people scale. When
Yeah.
you're looking at a diamond tennis bracelet online, it's hard to see how that's going to look on you. And I think seeing it on somebody, and they're like, you can say, oh, okay, my wrist is also about that big, so it's going to look like that on me. That's a very good point that I think sometimes, putting web pictures on websites, sometimes it gets lost. Like you just put a picture of a ring. Well, that doesn't tell me how big that ring is. And the average person isn't going to understand how big is a 1 carat diamond with, side stones. Like they're not going to understand that.
Right.
Yeah, and I think one of the advantages is like probably the best associates were doing that before in the store, right? They were using their own device, they were taking a picture. But from a customer experience, if I was getting that in a text, I can't click on it. I have to now go to a website, try and find that product with a SKU number or web ID, and to get more information before I'm ready to even come back into the store. So having the image that links to the e-com site as well as the photo, those two together complement each other very nice. And of course, the personalized comment that marketing can do on their own. It's only an associate that knows their customer that can really personalize that comment. And then the ease is that the customer can see that, check it out online. And if they want, they can say, you know what, I'll come see you 2 p.m. and they can book an appointment virtually or in store to try on, that jewelry. So all of these workflows, whether it's live chat, messaging, appointments, events, reaching out by email or SMS, they're all interconnected customer journeys, which is another reason why you want to make sure you have one platform that can do those things at your convenience.
Right. I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned several times now, like email newsletters, and it's amazing. We do so many of these webinars, and Lenore, you know this, and people still say how effective email newsletters are.
Yeah.
Even though people now get tons of email, it's still considered very effective. I mean, you
Well,
have
our
to do them
stats,
with the right frequency, not too few, not too many, but still very effective.
yeah, and one of the things that we've really differentiated is when the store associate follows up with an existing customer, that's not an e-blast, right? That's not viewed as coming from corporate. So the open rates are 80%. And the average
Oh,
marketing open
wow.
rate is probably like 30 or 40. So when a
Right.
customer sees that John, their jewelry advisor that sold them something 3 weeks ago, is emailing or texting, they will open it. And we also have a 50% higher click-through rate, and then we can measure for our clients the amount of sales that happened online as a result, as well as the number of sales that happened in the store. So the retailers know exactly how that outreach from the associate is converting. And that's been, it's not even an evolution of the marketing team. It's really a new way to engage with your customers and sell to your customers in a much more personalized way.
Yeah, very true. We've had a question come in. Someone wants to know, he wants to know what about people want to know what about you're talking about obviously B2C selling. What about B2B selling? Like tips for manufacturers selling to retailers. Is that something Salesfloor does as well?
Well, we do have one client that is taking that using Salesforce for that approach. As you know, Salesforce is the number one B2B sales tool and sales enablement tool, but they don't have a lot of the things that we do that some B2B players like. So if there's a assortment of product that constantly changes, if it is something that the B2B customers can very easily buy digitally, and if there's an ongoing relationship that the customer benefits from, then Salesforce is applicable. So we do have a furniture retailer who works with a lot of a furniture wholesaler, and that brand works with a lot of independent retailers. And those independent retailers like hearing from their rep on all the merchandise that are coming and what could be applicable. We also have a very large beauty brand. They have about 3,000 independent retailers that sell their cosmetics, and that brand is using Salesfloor to engage with 3,000 different, small retailers and promote beauty products and beauty looks and support those independent retailers. So I think there's certain circumstances where there's a high engagement in the sale that the B2B space applies to Salesforce.
Yeah, I think this question is coming from in the jewelry industry. We've been lacking all our major trade shows for a year now. And I think a lot of wholesalers are wondering, how do I reach my retailers? Like, will retailers use these kind of virtual tools to buy their merchandise from their suppliers? And it seems like, yes, you do have companies that do this.
Yeah, I would say that if they deal with thousands of customers, because they deal with independent small retailers, you can't do that personally on the phone, right? So this is where Salesforce would be really good to help sell to all of those independent retailers. If you're dealing with Walmart, you don't need Salesforce, right? You need another type of tool that's helping you, manage your customer database.
Right, right. Well, those are all the questions that we have for today. So thanks again to you, Oscar, and to Lenore. Thank you for hosting today. Um, my next question will return again next Tuesday, and that is April 13th at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be hosting that one, and I am going to be chatting with members of an organization called the Young Diamantaires. It's an organization comprised of young professionals employed along all points of the diamond supply pipeline. And we're going to be chatting about the diamond market pre and post pandemic. I've just dropped the link where on the National Jeweler website you can register. That's just been dropped in the chat. Thanks again to our host and our guest today. And thank you for our audience for joining us. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you.